durable volumes.
Not for, well, for 25 years and less durable.
Well, okay, 25 years is pretty durable. They all
I took a lot of art. Yeah, so right now something's in, something's out, something, the old ones that is people were it's like total chaos. And I'm still putting
Hello? Ooh, well. Sorry about that. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming and being patient. My name is Taryn Wolf. I'm the Director of Academic Administration here at the Yale School of Art. So good to see all of you. And I'm really pleased that we fit perfectly in here because I've been completely stressed out about it for the past week. So you all look very comfortable. The open house today, we do this once a year. We have phone calls all year round, people wanting to learn more about our programs, come onto our campus, see our facilities. And we do one open house for admission in the fall, and we do an open studios program in the spring. We're a small school, we'll get into that in a little bit, but it's difficult to accommodate guests just because of the culture of students working in their studios, and you'll get to see today a little bit what I mean. But we're really pleased to have you here today to kind of open the doors and tell you more about what we do here and also how to apply. And you'll get a chance this afternoon to meet faculty and students that are currently in our programs. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce our dean, Marta Kuzma. She's a professor of art. She's a curator and a theorist. Dean Kuzma was appointed to the Yale School of Art in 2016 as the first woman to hold that position in the 150-year history of the school. It's pretty cool. Dean Kuzma holds a postgraduate degree in art theory and aesthetics, and prior to her tenure at Yale, she had been the chancellor of the Royal Institute of Art in Stockholm, Sweden. She was the director of the Contemporary Arts Research Foundation Office for Contemporary Art Norway, and the founding director of the Soros Center for Contemporary Art in Kiev, Ukraine. She's a member of the curatorial team for Documenta in 2013, and Dean Kuzma has extensive experience curating international exhibitions and doing various research initiatives that bring together contemporary art and education. At the School of Art, Dean Kuzma oversees and teaches critical practice, which is a mandatory course for first-year MFA students. It's a class of 62, and I'll introduce Marta.
Thanks, I feel like I'm up for a job interview or something. Welcome to the Yale School of Art. And firstly, allow me to pay some serious respect to Taryn Wolf, who as the Director of Academic Administration here at the school is someone who so attentively is connected to students in meaningful ways. She's absolutely pivotal to any student's life and is among the many individuals within this community who contributes to the Yale School of Art as a collective homestead for 2 very crucial years of any graduate student's life. So thank you. So as Taryn mentioned, I am the dean, but I am also a professor here at the school, and I couldn't imagine doing the former without the latter, as it's from the students that I take my lead in how to stay connected with the world as an educator, as a visual thinker, as a human. I have the honor of serving as this school's first woman dean in its 150-year history, and I take that role really seriously, not only with respect to the strides achieved within the women's movement in the past, but in respecting that there's still a lot more to get done. I also understand that keeping the school vital, we must continue to foster a community of students and faculty as diverse and tolerant as possible. The Yale School of Art continues to lead the field as the best art school in the country. It's a position it maintains without hubris, and one enabled by approximately 120 students who both thrive and struggle within it. The education provided to each one of them is by professors, lecturers, and critics numbering over 100, and the attention provided by the generous administrative staff who supports and ushers everything effortlessly along. The education is led and choreographed by an exemplary teaching faculty and department directors, to include some of which these individuals are here, pioneers such as Professor Sheila Levrant de Bretteville of graphic design, whose practice reflects her commitment to feminist principles and user participation. Martin Kersels of sculpture, who challenges traditional interpretations of scale and tension to explore the role of performativity through a broad spectrum of enactments, both within and outside of visual art. Anoka Faruqi of painting and printmaking, who values diversity and equity as much as commitment to a painting as an act. Gregory Crutzen of photography, who works through film's critical tradition with respect to the portrayal of everyday American rituals and sites. And here is John Pilson today as the acting director of photography this spring. These are among the members of a larger faculty joined by other leading artists and art educators who comprise what this institution is about and who you will learn about more today. There is no doubt that we are in an environment fraught with a level of anxiety within the current social political climate, and our suffering environment as well. Within this rather modest but potent school community, there is a pervasive recognition of that predicament that provokes us to ask how to proceed with acumen and with a sense of safety without abandoning the risk we all need to take as artists. The school seeks to strengthen the all-school curriculum and its elective offerings as a way to help artists lead the life collaboratively while still feeling okay about devoting time to a solitary practice of making, composing, and arranging. The fact that this school is posited within a leading research university makes it all that easier, and the unfathomable becomes accessible. We've also launched an initiative around art and social justice as a way to offer alternative routes should one seek civic engagement or collective practice. Most importantly, what this initiative strives for is equity in graduate education. For all that this Yale School of Art has to offer, there is this hard-baked reality of a societal inequality that hinders some of the best candidates from applying. And for this reason, it is perhaps most important that I convey that today we offer 80 to 90% of the artists accepted into the program with some sort of financial aid, and you will be taught about that today as well. It is true what Taryn said. I lead the critical practice class, and it's an area of study despite the exhaustive reading load may lend ways to cope and function as a practicing artist amid a highly dysfunctional world. The course evolves and changes from year to year with a thread of artists, theorists, and philosophers, among who return and include individuals such as Andrea Fraser, Fred Moten, Peter Osborne, Hito Steil, Walid Rad. As a mandatory course, things start off simple. This year, each student was asked to answer the question, how do you find your work critically relevant? Then things get more challenging. Each student was asked again, how do you find your work critically relevant without using I? It was from there that the course began. Things evolved depending on the class composition. This year we harvested with the Yale Farm as we digested the material we read around Donna Haraway's Staying with the Trouble. Perhaps next year we will harvest at our own community garden. Although critical practice is intended to foster an articulation around your practice in your own words, it also serves as an interdepartmental plot to locate a shared community that will hopefully stay with you for the years ahead. Before you set out on this afternoon's orientation session, I would like to recollect Fred Moten's words from the commencement talk given in this very same room last May. Quote, "To state plainly what it is that you and your teachers already know, that for us all, the study of art, which is the study of life we share, continues and has only just begun, be that with or without an MFA degree." And we have this printed, his commencement speech from last May, if you'd like to have a look at it. So welcome today, and learn as much as you can, and we look forward to seeing you here next autumn. And if you are not here with us next autumn, you are also welcome. The school is open for you to help celebrate our 150th year in 2019. And now the word, if we could return back to Taryn. Thank you very much.
I need reading glasses now. It's very sudden development. Okay. Okay, so welcome again. Welcome from me. This is us at orientation. That's all 127 students and 40, 50 faculty members. We're just going to go a little overview of what we're going to cover today. I will talk through the admissions questions that you may have. We'll discuss the process of applying to the Yale School of Art, and then we'll have a panel discussion with the directors of graduate study, who I'll introduce in just a little bit. And then David, my colleague David Blackman, will come and he'll talk about financial aid. A couple things before he gets to that I will point out is that we only have need-based aid here at Yale School of Art, so the faculty have nothing to do with awarding scholarships, and they won't be able to give you any information about that, so they get asked a lot. But David will talk you through that whole process. But at 3:30, when we break out into the various sessions, we'll lead you to different areas within the school, and then we'll talk in those areas much more about the programs themselves and the aesthetic virtues and the pedagogical aspects of the programs. Then at the end of the day, before we have our closing reception for our first year show, A.M. Garawi, who works with Marta to teach the critical practice course, will be in this space in the classroom to answer any questions anybody has about critical practice, which is a developing area at the school. So, Marta mentioned we have our graduation in this space. This is the graphic design department that you're sitting in. This is an active space. There's classes happening in here, desk crits. This is where the students work. All of our graduate students in graphic design sit at desks in the mezzanine surrounding this area. So that is their personal workspace. We just ask that until the breakout program later, please don't venture up there until that time of the day happens. But we are a 24/7 facility. Our students are working in their studios all the time. And every different program, each program has its own workspace for students that you'll also get to see when you go into your breakout. But just to start at a high level and put kind of the School of Art into context within the rest of the university at Yale. Yale has 12,312 total students. We have more than half of the students here at Yale are graduate students, almost 7,000, and they're studying across 13 graduate and professional schools. You will know that we have the Graduate School of Arts and Science, we have the main graduate school. It can be confusing when you apply because every school at Yale, every professional school has their own application process and their own online application. We'll get to that. But our students come from 118 different countries worldwide, and we have 128 graduate students currently studying here. So we're a very, very small professional school at Yale. Of course, we have the 4 programs. Graphic design has a 2- and a 3-year preliminary program. Sheila will talk about that in the breakout. Painting and printmaking, which is our largest program, just a little, next to graphic design. We bring in about 20 to 22 students a year in painting. In graphic design, it is 7 prelim and how many? 5 to 7 prelim.
And we add 10 more.
And then we bring in about 10 2-year regular MFA students. The photography program enrolls about 10 new students a year, as well as sculpture, so 20 and 20 total. And then we also have the developing area of critical practice, which is the first year course, but Dean Kuzma continues to bring lectures and programming in. And we've also started more all-school programming. So the academic requirements required of all students, regardless of their program, is to complete 60 units total to get their MFA. 42 of those units are core credits in the area of study. So each individual program has a set list of requirements. Some are, certain classes are required as first-year students, and then many of them are elective, but they're just within that core program. Additionally, students take 18 units that can be outside of the core credits in their program, and a minimum of 6 academic credits, which is 2 classes. But within that 18, you can really explore beyond your program. Many of the units that our students do are also in individual criticism and critique and meetings with visiting artists and lecturers, with senior critics, and with their faculty. So there's a great deal of coursework that's done, like one-on-one reviews within your studio space or at your desk crit. The programs, we'll get into talking a little bit about how they intersect and the ways in which our programs are interdisciplinary. But we have, of course, here at a university like Yale, so many different resources beyond just what's here in our tiny school. And so more and more we're seeing the students engage with those opportunities and with those spaces and facilities. Of course, the university has incredible museums and collections. We have the UAG, the University Art Gallery, which is just down the street, the Center for British Art, the Beinecke Rare Books and Manuscripts Library, the Peabody, and many, many more facilities. So if you're here for a few days, definitely check those things out and get a sense of what's here on the campus. We also have some really special cross-disciplinary university facilities like the Center for Engineering and Design and the CCAM, which is the Center for Collaborative Arts and Media. And these are really hubs within the university that draw students from different schools and programs to create work together and work in this laboratory setting. In fact, we did, just this past weekend, Sarah Oppenheimer ran a workshop at the CCAD, oh, that was a video, but it's not working, called Sensitive Machine, where we had 17 students from the engineering school and the art school working together making prosthetics. Okay. So applying to the programs begins, our applications have been open since October, so you can begin applying at any time. The School of Art requires admission, it's definitely takes a high level of capability and commitment. Applicants must hold, most of our applicants hold a bachelor's degree from another institution, regionally accredited institution, internationally or domestically. Occasionally, in very exceptional cases, students who do not have an undergraduate degree can enroll in the program, depending upon the experience that they bring. But for the most part, our students are coming from undergrad. Not directly, though. We do prefer to see that students take some time off between undergraduate and graduate school. Not across the board an absolute rule, but it is what we recommend, and you'll hear from our faculty a little bit as to why. But our application deadline is in January. We get 80% of our applications after January 1st submitted. So our deadline is January 4th, but you can really apply anytime. It requires a lot of planning. There's aspects to any application, as you know, you've all applied to undergrad school, where you'll need letters of recommendation and really to prepare your work and your statement. And our office gets many, many phone calls between now and January, but I think the greatest concentration of those happen as soon as we return from break. And the best ones are the emails and calls we get asking if you live in California, if you get until midnight Pacific time to submit your application. And then that goes on and on into, other countries. So midnight Eastern time, please submit your applications. All of your materials, like your application, your portfolio, are all due on that date. Of course, letters of recommendation can come in after that. But applicants are notified of our admission decision as to preliminary selections in early February. So as you probably know, the Yale School of Art requires an interview for finalists that get to that stage of admission. So if you do receive a letter inviting you to interview at the school, that is an in-person interview where you come onto campus in February. And then final decisions are rendered thereafter, and we send letters in early March. So students, some of you even that are here today, indicated interest in more than one program. So if you are interested in more than one program, you can apply to more than one, but you actually have to make separate applications. You have to do the entire process over again. You pay the fee, you submit the portfolio, all the letters, because they really do go off into different departments. Generally, I think most students who are successful here in admission are pretty clear as to what program is right for them. Our programs are pretty different, and through our conversation today, hopefully will help illustrate that. But the questions we get from students who are interested in more than one program tend to be for people who are working in video and performance and installation, and they're like, I do some painting and I do some sculpture, and it's all over the place. So I think the best advice we have for you if you're in that position is to, again, especially that you're here today, check out the work that's happening in the programs, go to the program breakouts, look at our faculty work, obviously, I think that's obvious, but get a sense of what kind of aesthetic is in that program, and that can hopefully help you clear up which direction you should go in. And if you're still not sure and you still want to apply to more than one, you may, but it's double the work. So the application itself, pretty straightforward. We're online on our wiki page, the art.yale.edu. You can go to admissions, you can link to our application, submit the forms. We require a $100 fee and a one-page statement. This should address your influences, your interests, your current work direction, and the reasons for applying to graduate school at this time. You can talk a little bit about your personal history and your identity, but it shouldn't necessarily be your entire life story. It's a 500-word limit, so just really keeping it to one page is a good idea. And, people write in very, very small type, but it should be brief. 3 references. References are from 3 individuals who are practicing or teaching in the field in which your application is being made. They're attesting to the applicant's ability and competence within that field. As mentioned, it generally takes several weeks to complete an application, so it's strongly recommended that you prepare your materials early and start to ensure completion by our deadlines. And every program here has slightly different just guidelines and things in the portfolio that we're asking for, so please do get familiar with our website and all of the requirements that are there. We also have our School of Art Bulletin, we publish every year. That's a PDF online you can search, and we have a link on our website too. The bulletin goes through in detail a lot of the portfolio guidelines as well. Applicants also need to submit transcripts of academic record for their bachelor's degree, and these can be unofficial transcripts. Only students who are invited to the interview will need to submit official transcripts at that time. So again, I mentioned statements should be no more than 500 words and do not apply to the Yale Graduate School of Arts and Sciences because that goes to a whole different school at Yale. So the portfolio requirement is, the portfolio is, you know, it's really very big, important part of the process. You're going to submit 20 images. Again, please follow the guidelines for your program. Really represent your best work. This should not be a chronology of everything you've ever done. We really recommend that the work be done within the last 12 to 18 months. It should be recent. And it should indicate the direction you're thinking of going and demonstrating, of course, your abilities, but the way you're thinking through your practice. This is, I'm going to say this is super important. So everybody out there, the 400 people who are streaming this live, you too, please do not submit composite images, okay? That's when you take a slide and you cram as many images into it as you can, and they're really small because you think more is better. It's not better. We would like to see individual pieces clearly. We'd like to see them, you know, framed in such a way where it's not tons of space around the piece, but just central, one image per slide. You can submit a detail shot, but you should have, you know, roughly 20 pieces in your portfolio. If you're working in video, there are some time limitations and recommendations as well by program, so please pay attention to those too. But composite images are very, very difficult for us to see. It's always too bad if a student has interesting work, but we're trying to view it and we're really not able to see any level of detail because there's just way too much in each image, and often those students are not considered for admission if we can't really see their work. So let's see. Couple of other things that I didn't touch on the application, which are that if you are an international student whose first language is not English, we do have a TOEFL requirement. We ask for a minimum of 100, so please submit your TOEFL along with your application. And there are some other requirements as well for graphic design, has a CV where they'll be also looking at the way that you're designing that. So without further ado, those are all the technicals. I'd really like to have our DGSs introduce themselves, and then they're going to talk to you about really the nuances and the things that make or break an application from their experience working to oversee admission into these programs. So if you want to, do you want to start? Okay.
Sure. Hi, I'm Anoka Faruqi, and I'm the Director of Graduate Studies in the Painting and Printmaking Department. So just let everybody introduce.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Hi, I'm John Pilson. I'm a senior critic and acting chair while Gregory Crutzen is on his scheduled sabbatical.
I'll figure it out.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Sheila. You don't need the rest of it.
Sheila, I don't know if we can hear you so well. Pull your mic in close.
You can't hear me?
Okay.
I just said you can call me Sheila. You don't need the rest of my last name. And I've been directing this program since 1990.
Martin Curcel's sculpture.
All right. So I'm going to just moderate the panel to start out, ask a few questions, and get it going. And then we do have, as I mentioned, we're streaming this, so we have a few hundred people streaming live. We'll be taking some questions from you all and from the audience out there in the world.
Taryn, is that the streaming camera back there?
Yes.
Okay.
So you know where to look, Martin.
You. We're talking to you.
Show them those green glasses.
Talking to you out there
All right.
on the interweb.
So I'm just going to kick off the conversation by asking, as the academic leadership of these esteemed programs, what does it mean for you to be a professional design and art school within Yale University, within this amazing place? And anyone who wants to start can start. Don't jump at it.
Sure. Sure, I'll start. So I think what's exciting about attending, or for someone attending, or for someone teaching, is just the range of things that are happening on campus at any given moment. Not just in the art school, but in the other creative schools. So in the drama school, the music school, the architecture school, and the other academic disciplines, the courses that you have access to. It is a requirement that everyone going through the graduate program here in the School of Art take courses outside of the art school. So that is part of the requirement, is that you take at least 2 courses outside of the art school. So that can be a course in English or anthropology or African American studies. There could be something related to your practice as an artist or designer that you want to go into depth, and you're really studying with people who are leaders in their field, and you also have access to collections. And so I think it's just a great, honestly, I'm not able to actually utilize all the resources that are here, just given schedules. So you'll find that it's quite rich, and there's so much, there's more than you can possibly do in terms of just events and talks and lectures. And so that's my sort of start answer.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. Access is what the larger university represents to our students. In the course of the 2 years, they are required to take 2 classes outside of the School of Art. There's a big blue course catalog. I'm sure a lot of these classes are on the web, but it's the definition of an embarrassment of riches. We have had students take business management classes, psychology classes. It's just incredible access to a vast course curriculum. And I would also say that maybe one thing I could say is that I do think that in a way Yale and the city of New Haven combined are the kind of 5th Beatle up here in terms of what might be gleaned from being here. I think the city of New Haven and Yale as an idea, the way they coexist, there are lessons there. Photographers often have questions about what I'm going to do when I get here, but there is a lot of here, not just within Yale. And I think it's important. I actually think it's part of the education.
I'm hearing from the back that maybe people can't hear super well. So,
That's true?
yeah. Turn the volume up a little bit, pump up the volume, please.
Well, I thought you
sir.
might be interested to know that, whoa. Okay. I thought you'd like to know that a lot of very rich people have been coming to this university for a very long time, and they've left a lot of wonderful things here. So the collections are absolutely extraordinary. And just this morning, I was at the Beinecke working with Kevin Rapp, because Jacqueline DeJong, who was, probably you won't even know her, but if you did know her, she's one of the Situationists, and did the Situationist Times. And we have it within the graphic design department. One of our required workshops is to go to all of the collections that the students are interested in, so that you can see the actual work and talk about it and know more about it. So that was one of the ways in which being at a university has been around for a long time and has gathered a lot of things. Also the gallery, if you go across to the Yale Art Gallery or to the British Art Museum, it's astonishing. They're both incredibly beautiful buildings, and they actually have a lot of wonderful things in them. So all of that is a place you could take a walk on a very snowy day. The other thing that I think is really terrific is that our students who have taken classes in subjects they hadn't previously studied before often find that they make connections to the teachers and then continue to have coffee with them after they've taken the class. So it's not like faculty are these people who are sitting behind desks. This is not normal for us. We're usually over there, right with you. So, and so are many of the teachers who are teaching you in the university. They're really accessible, and some of them come and look at your work in their studio. So it's not like it's a hierarchical situation. It might seem daunting when you are looking at it from afar, but when you're here, I think you know that you are in a community of people who are all looking for a way to contribute to themselves, but also to society at large. And that's true, I think, of everyone who's here. I don't know if there's anything else I could say that would make it clear that your work will grow because you are in a community of people who are all trying to make their work be different, how they can be more dexterous, more resilient, more multi-abled in the world. And to be with other people who have the same kind of desires, even if it's not in the same kind of material, is a really enriching experience.
Courses would touch on community, collections, I'll add weather.
You'll add weather.
No, I don't really have anything to add to all the things. They've covered the bases.
Okay. Well, we also have you guys, so we have you, Mark.
Faculty.
Great. So let's talk about timing. When do you feel that it's the best time for people when are they most ready, prepared in the trajectory of their practice for graduate study?
In my opinion, and we talk about this in sculpture, is after a point of having some experience outside of school, we appreciate. So because one of the things that you're getting here, besides all the things that have been mentioned, is time. And many times the idea of when coming right from an undergraduate program, you're sort of in school time. And I think to appreciate what you have here, I think you need to have it's about your time and not about the school-defined time. And so we prefer in sculpture that you think about, go out and experience life, go have some troubles, go have some great times, go do all these different things. Get in trouble, make sure your record's clean when you come here.
Not too much trouble.
Yeah. There is actually a question on the application, are you a convicted felon? And people answer that truthfully, and we do accept people who have been felons, who have paid their debt to society. So I think that's something that's really important to think, for me at least. I won't speak to any other program.
I think from perspective of design, there's a particular thing to pay attention to. Most of the people who have applied have either done work with clients or work with teachers, and have seldom done work that's their work. And coming to graduate school is to come and do your work and have that work be mature and grow and be deepened and broadened by the access to the things that we've all been describing here, and we will continue when you're talking with us. So this is a place where you do your work. And most of our assignments, so to speak, are just prompts, things to just get you started. You know, it's that little piece of dirt you're going to make this pearl from. So we're looking for people who are ready to do that. And so to just add something to what Taryn listed, we ask that you include in your 20 images that you did without a client or a teacher having anything. You didn't collaborate perhaps with someone who makes things like you and you did it together, but some way in which you give yourself what it is you want to make, and you make it and you show it to us, because that's the beginning of you taking charge of your making, and that's what you're here for.
If we could just pull our mics just a little closer, that would be great.
Did somebody not hear that?
I'm still getting a.
Did anybody not hear Sheila? Anybody?
Back in
One
this
person,
corner,
okay.
I think it's the toughest.
Maybe you should come closer.
Yeah, but also make some work that nobody asked you for, and put that up. Take pictures of it. Really good pictures of it. And put it in your portfolio.
I mean, there's a lot of different trajectories, a lot of different experiences. It's not the same thing for every student, but I look at this currently enrolled students, the 20 students that are in our program, and I know that if they weren't here, they would be working this year. They would be making progress this year. They would be asking hard questions. So a lot of what goes on, I think, is an externalization of something we do ourselves. Doubt, revise, throw it out, try again. I do think that the most critical thing is a genuine curiosity in adding things to what you already know. A real hunger for being challenged and for giving of yourself. Participation is a big part of the community. It's a big part of critique. A willingness to bring your ideas, not just your own work, but to be able to share and participate in the learning. We learn from other people's critiques. We learn from our own responses to what other people are going through. So it's an openness. But beyond that, a little bit of experience really does help. But there are exceptions to every rule.
All right.
I would agree. I just wanted to emphasize John's point about openness and experimentation. So while we are hoping that you're coming with some experience and some sense of yourself and making work independent of, as Sheila said, a client or a teacher, we also are seeking those people who genuinely are searching for feedback and criticism and are open to that change that will inevitably happen while they are here. So that is central to what we seek when we look at the applications, read the statements, and do the interviews.
Great, thank you. What nuances would you say make for, Sheila touched on this a little bit, for the portfolio and doing non-client-based work for graphic design, but what nuances make for a successful portfolio, or what things do you see in the selection of work that students submit that is maybe repeatedly not the best thing to submit? When we talk about like how many pieces and what does it entail, what's the secret sauce?
Not a diary entry. I mean, in terms of like your life story, I think we want to try to think about who you are now and not necessarily who you were 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, unless it's germane to the work. That's one thing.
Yeah, also, when you mention who you're interested in, it shouldn't be the faculty here, because in fact, because you can imagine, we look at that and we think,
Speak for yourself.
You like to be that. But we really want, if there's someone you're reading now, or there's a book that you just read, or a film that you just saw, or a person who changed the way you think, then it makes sense. But to do anything other than what you understand what I'm saying, that it really isn't about who we are so much as what's affecting you and what is of interest to you at this time and what you hope to get from coming here, because that is more interesting to us. And I know that there's a certain group of people who tend to tell us what they did when they were a child and what was the first moment that they knew that they were artists or designers, and that can be in there if it's germane to this moment, but it doesn't. Just to repeat it is not useful to you even. So it's more useful for you to take a good look at what you want from coming here and make it clear to us what it is you hope to get here.
And I think we're talking about statements, right? You asked about portfolio.
I asked about portfolio, but sure, we can talk about statements.
Your portfolio
the whole
is
package.
a statement.
Right, okay.
That's true.
Yeah, and I think these answers about what what should be in the statement is very relevant to what should be in the portfolio, because it should be about, in both cases, what you're most excited about and your present self, as Sheila said. And the relationship between the statement and the portfolio is really important. Sometimes we look at applications in which the statement seems to have nothing to do with the portfolio. And that can be very confusing, and that is often not a good signal to us. So speak to your work in the statement, so that we can see a correlation between the visuals that you are submitting and the verbals that you are writing. And that's a really important piece. And it's always reassuring when somebody can physically describe their work and speak to very specifically their sources and influences and the attributes and qualities of the work and the motivations behind the work. So the statement should be very focused on the work that you're making. And again, to the extent that your life experience is relevant to you and the work that you make, that should be included too, but don't forget the work when you write the statement.
That's true across the board here.
Yeah.
I would think all of us would say exactly that.
Yeah, and I agree. There is always a possibility for this clarity in your statement and in your portfolio. I think everybody has their own definition of this, but one should, I have a lot of, I got to say, there's a lot of difference, and there's a lot of difference in this room, but the one thing I do like to think is a common denominator is that just filling out these applications is a statement to yourself. You're saying, I want my life to change. I want the next year to be radically different than this year. I want to enter into something that is a giant question mark. A lot of you will be walking away from money. In this world, that's a weird thing to do. And I think pretty much you do it because you got no backup plan. This is it. And so be bold, be clear, and tell the story that you want to tell visually. Some people want to tell a story about, I did this, and then I had to face a big question, and I did that. That's a story. But there's this, you should also have faith, for all the risk you're taking, you should also have faith that in this particular context, people looking at your work have a little bit of intuition. We're actually looking for what's not there. We're looking for these hints that there is openness and that you believe that there are vast unknown things that you have not looked at yet. But at the same time, there's this feeling of clarity and momentum and sense of purpose, even with all the questions that you have.
Maybe this is a good time to mention that phrase, representative image.
I don't know.
Yeah, because don't fret about that. That's actually something that is just going to be the image that is attached to your materials. It's not the be-all, end-all of your existence. It's not wrapped up in one image. So don't make that a big issue for yourself. We do look at it because you had to choose one of those 20. So if that one is the one that you took the biggest risk at, then it's good to mention it in your statement. But in other words, use it for yourself because it's not really, it's not that important.
What Sheila's talking about is when you submit your application online in the portfolio, it asks you to select one of your pieces as your representative work. And on our end, that's really it's like the cover sheet, basically, of your application. Okay. So some programs emphasize it a little bit more than others. It's really just the way the application processes the PDF. But yeah, it does show.
Not to worry.
Yeah. Thanks, Sheila. Does anyone else have? Okay. Can you talk a little bit about what's supposed to happen, right, in this process? So I think we see a lot of students come, they work so hard to get here, and then they're in their program, and what happens next? I mean, is it really about coming and everything you make being amazing and feeling like you're at the top MFA program in the country and everything's great? Or do people kind of, does everything fall apart for a minute and that's okay?
My first response to that is that it is genuinely mysterious. As long as I've, been here, I cannot tell you what happens other than it happens. and why is something that I'm happy to be humbled by. I don't know what happens, and it's different for everyone. But when it does happen, I can't tell you why. I can only say that it does.
All right.
I can tell you what we hope will happen. Yeah, I can tell you what we hope will happen. That you come and it's like opening a door into a room you've never been in before, you've never seen before, and you haven't walked, just to walk right in it. It's just, it's not, I think especially in our program, I think that the switch from doing work for to doing work for yourself at the heart of it is really a big leap for most designers. And so we understand that the first semester is going to be harder to do, because you're often we're really trying to help you become able to generate your own work and know what that is. And that's what the program helps you do. So I know that this first year, the first semester, is probably the hardest semester, and probably the one that at the end is both exhilarating and scary, because that world that's so shitty out there, it's still going to be there in 2 or 3 years. Maybe something will get better. We hope so.
So to give a call back to what John said, that you're making a decision to do something to change, make a change in your life, and change does not come without trouble sometimes, without stress or without struggle. And so everyone approaches it differently, and everyone has a first semester that's different than their second semester, and it'll be different than their third and fourth semesters. And sometimes you don't even know exactly, again, the mystery of it. You may not realize what you've gained until a year outside of here.
6?
Or a 6th year.
Yeah, more.
But I can say it will change your life, and I think for the most part it will be a positive change.
Well, at minimum, you're going to make a lot of new friends who will be there to support you. Because, in fact, they're going through the same thing you're going through, but slightly differently. Because each one of you is unique, so your experience is going to be unique. But you will have other people near you who you can go to and talk to and learn from. And more happens, I think, in the conversations between students that sometimes happens between students and faculty. So your fellow students here are really important people in your life. And
yeah, that is so true. And it's also, I think it's very important for everyone in this sphere to be able to really clarify for themselves what it is. And what it is, I think, is different. I think law school is a little bit like being a lawyer. Art school is kind of like your life as an artist, but in many ways, very different. And one of the things that I do think that is specific to this context, which I don't think is true in other fields, is what's being said, that it is organic and spontaneous and created by the people that have this shared commitment and passion, and we are all living in the present tense and dealing with all the history of tradition together right now. And that's part of the mystery too, but it's part of the ways in which I think the art the school part of the art part is unique. I think there's a lot of anxiety within the arts about having art be informed and actually supported by other disciplines. Now, that's fine, but all I'm saying is that there is something that we call art, which should be seen as to stand on its own 2 feet.
Thank you. Okay, I'm getting some of the questions from the virtual audience, one of whom asks if we're going to post this anywhere after because they can't hear very well, so we apologize. We're going to keep trying to get as close to our mics as we can. But while we start doing that, I just want to also let you know that we're going to open up the floor to Q&A. So if you have a question, you can queue up at the mic, but we'll start with a virtual question and then we'll kind of alternate between the two. So the first one here is from Becca, and I'm not going to say her last name because I will completely not do it right. But she says, I think this is for Anoka. What do new students, specifically new incoming painting and printmaking students, struggle with the most at first?
So I think a few things. I think one of the things that people struggle with is imposter syndrome. So they come to Yale and they're like, I'm not supposed to be here. How did I get in? And just some reassurance is that everybody feels that way when they get here. I co-teach a class with Molly Zuckerman-Hartung in which students send us weekly responses to readings via email. And so we're getting these very individualized things about people writing about the reading, but then also mentioning that they feel uncomfortable because they don't know as much, but we're getting the same emails from all 23 students. And so I wish I could so then we just say to them like, hey, we write back and we say, hey, you're not alone. And so it's just funny that they're not willing to share that in the group, but they are one-on-one. So to just get that out right out of the way, that can be difficult because it can feel like a lot of pressure. And so that anxiety can create a kind of paralysis. So a lot of what what I tell people in the first semester is just make a lot of stupid junk. And I know it's contradictory because at the same time we're asking you to read critical theory and art history and think about your work critically and establish self-criticality, which seems counter to make a lot of stupid junk, but it's meant to be like, relax, it's okay. We believe, particularly in our department, the other departments can speak to their philosophies, but that there's a lot of knowledge through making, and that it has to be supported by reading and thinking and talking, but reading and thinking and talking doesn't necessarily solve the studio problems, and those studio problems have to be solved materially and in a physical, embodied, experiential way. And so I try to remind students to find a balance between the reading, thinking, talking, and the making, and making sure that they carve out enough space to problem solve in the studio, which initially might just be quantity experimentation in that first semester. That's what I promote in the first semester, is quantity and experimentation, not quality, not masterpieces, whatever that means, but really just allowing yourself to experiment.
Thanks, Anoka. Yeah. Okay, no one's queuing up, so I guess nobody has questions from the real live audience. Oh, we have one.
Do they know about the queue?
Oh yeah, there's a mic in the middle if you want to.
There's somebody aiming for it.
Make your way. Look at, I like it. Hi.
Hi. Hey. So my question is, you spoke about how some artists might have multimedia tendencies and how we're encouraged to go to the breakout sessions to see which department we fit in. Once admitted, how accessible are other professors or critics in other departments if you're interested in working with them or like just getting feedback?
Very. No, seriously, very.
Okay.
I mean, I had someone who came in graphic design, and while she was here, she really became a performance artist. So Martin helped. She saw a lot of Martin. So you really don't know what you'll become.
Right.
You know, especially I really can't reinforce more strongly what Anoka just said. Thinking leads to thinking, making leads to making. It's not that they're divorced from each other, but it's through the making that you find out what you're making. And so you could land up making something you didn't expect to make. It lands up being more closely aligned with one or the other areas. I mean, all of us, well, not all of us, I know that John at least and I started out doing certain things. Like I started out making books, and I landed up making permanent installations in cities. I consider it permanent graphic design. They call it art. Fine, fine with me. So it's not what you're called so much or what the area of study is. It's more that there's something central to each discipline. Like if I had to say what's central to us, people come out of the fact that writing, printing was part of it. So letter forms matter, typography matters to us. But at the edges of us, we're crossing over lots of other places. And so, of course you can talk to people in each area.
But the practicality of your question has to do with the particular nature of a school that has these 4 departments. And I think part of the answer is, yes, you have access, but at the same time, certain things require a little more hustle than they do in an open studio program wherein the faculty is your faculty. So certain things are a little frustrating for students because it feels like it shouldn't be a hustle. But then again, I actually think that's part of the learning too. That
well, I think that's always part of a multimedia practice, is that you do have to be able to move quickly, and I think you have to work harder than someone who has a very focused practice. Is my experience with working, I mean, with artists outside of schools.
But you can sit in on other departments' crits, and there's not, I don't know a single faculty member, if approached by someone who's not necessarily their student, who wouldn't visit a studio. So that's another answer.
We should go on because we have a lot of people behind you.
We also, to that end, someone asked, let me just find this question again, which program of study better fits someone who's making installation?
Well, it's what kind of installation? It depends on what kind of installation.
You have to speak into the mic.
It depends on what kind of installation. There are many kinds.
You heard it here.
Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of times installation winds up in sculpture many times, if the school doesn't have a new genres type of program. But I know that people making installations in all 4 programs. And so I think you kind of maybe have to take a look at the faculty like more closely on the website and investigate their practice and see if that will behoove you more. I mean, I have to say, like we have next year, Aki Sasimoto is starting, and she works in performance/installation. Like that is an indicator of someone who might be good to work with. So is sculpture the right place? Potentially. But I think look at the faculty.
Thanks. Okay.
Just a practical question about portfolio images, and I suppose each of you might have your own idea about what you're expecting.
Could you get a little closer to the mic?
Yeah, so just portfolio images and expectations from the jury, and I'm applying it specifically to the painting and printmaking program. So my question is, whether you want to see the images, the edges or not, is that important to just see the image or space around?
Yeah, I mean, we ask that you don't mask off the painting so that you don't completely isolate it from its context, but we don't need to see the whole room and your dog in the room with the painting. Sometimes people will interpret that comment of seeing the context as seeing we want to focus on the work, but we want to see it installed if it's on a wall or where it is, because that gives us a sense of its physicality. If you mask it off, then we don't know what its thickness off the wall is. We don't know what its physical presence is, and it just becomes an image. And we know that paintings are objects, so we want to kind of see them without being masked off.
So in my case, install images would be I mean, within reason, within
Right,
scale
I mean,
would be appropriate.
certainly if you're working in a more installational or site-specific way, and if the site is part of the work, that would need to be included. So it really is dependent on the type of work you do and how important the context is. If you're more of a kind of straight-up painter, then we would want to see the painting in with some, not a lot, but some context of understanding it as a physical object as well as a painting.
So just,
It's a three-part question.
so I'm sorry.
And we also
I
are-
apologize.
Just also, we will be breaking up
We'll be
into,
talking
Oh, yeah.
about that you can talk that in painting.
I'll step away and.
yeah, we will be breaking up in the breakout sessions, and there'll be another Q&A with me and painting faculty.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks, Anoka. I have one from the web, from Maria, and it says, when it comes to diversity within your faculty and students, what steps do you take to ensure a diverse and equitable experience, and how is this reflected by the faculty and student body?
I could start to answer. It's a big question. I think, so in the student population, we think about it during the admissions process, and we think about having all types of diversity in the program, and that includes any way that you could think of the word, and including types of different kinds of works, types of backgrounds, types of economic backgrounds, types of racial backgrounds, ethnic, religious, regional, gender identity, etc., and how that is, going to make a diverse class. And in painting, I guess we're lucky that we're a big department, so we can admit about 20 to 22 people a year, and we can think about the group as a whole and having, a very diverse, exciting group of people who will have different points of view, disagree with one another respectfully, and encourage dialogue. So that's what happens in admissions, and then we are constantly thinking about diversity in our faculty population, and in our hiring, and in our full-time hires, as well as in our visiting critics who are more part-time. So there tends to be different categories of people who are more stable and returning year after year, and then some people who may be for a semester and then coming. So there's a lot of change in that, and there's a lot of room in that to grow and to kind of improve on the question of diversity. A lot of it is driven by our students. As we get a more diverse student population, they ask for different types of courses, different types of curriculum, different types of faculty, and then we and me have to answer that and think about how we can change. So it's not just the people, though. It's the culture, and the culture is made up by all the people together. And so it's about fostering openness and communication. So and I know this is something, we do that in terms of thinking about critique formats and town hall formats, and that's an ongoing conversation about how as many voices can be part of the conversation as possible.
Thanks, Anoka. Sure. All right, we only have 20 more, or 15 more minutes, so we'll take your question.
Okay. How do you feel about submitting collaborative works as part of the 20 images?
Okay, so that question was about how do the faculty feel about submission of collaborative works?
Now, would that be collaborators applying together or work done in collaboration with, because we've seen both.
Work in collaboration.
Yeah. We've seen that. Yeah. Okay. I think it's a very personal question, though, because I would say one thing is sometimes people are applying coming out of, they've been working collaboratively, maybe they've been doing a kind of work which was in a context which, let's just say they've been working a lot, but they haven't really been working on their own. And coming here, often, sometimes we have applicants with a lot of experience, and part of that is collaborative, but they are coming here alone. So that is something to think about, your voice as an applicant, and how to clarify that.
Which program are you applying to, or thinking of applying to?
Painting.
I don't know if, Anoka, you want to address that more specifically, like clarify that,
I mean,
like in the meeting today?
Sure, we can talk about it more. I mean, we're definitely open to whatever you're most invested in, and if what you happen to be invested in addition to maybe work that you make on your own is collaborative work, then as long as that is clearly indicated.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Great. Go ahead.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
Because we get quite a few portfolios from abroad. And if someone has been in some situation where collaboration has become the only way that they can show us, we can't find the person. So your relationship in that collaboration is important to establish.
Yeah. True. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you so much for all your information. It's really helpful to be here. My question is, I'm a multidisciplinary artist, and I still haven't decided which major that I want to apply for. So I'm thinking, if I'm applying and submitting 20 best images, does it mean like 20 different project, or one project that has very detailed and research-based project with 20 different images, or how many projects do you think of when you think of 20 best images?
Well, the way maybe sometimes sculpture works, because we do get installation images and we do get complicated process pieces and or large sculptures or things. We like to see some detail also. So we don't need 20 works, but I think we'd like to see a minimum of 6 works. If it's in not like 6 small pieces that you're doing minuscule details. So usually if you have a larger piece, because we know that a large piece can take 6 months to make or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So it's all for all majors, like photos or painting, or?
I mean, another way to answer the question is that regardless of what department you apply to, even if you only work in one medium, we all know that we can select 20 pictures and present ourselves in
yes.
10 different ways. It has to do, again, it has to do with a sense of clarity. You know, you're not editing a book of your work. You're applying, showing where you've been, and suggesting where you might want to go. And that is, you know, this clarity of your self-portrait of your process is what should be on your mind. Certainly not proof that you can do a lot of different things.
And
I mean,
just
Certainly not.
well, it's, I don't
Not
think,
to
I mean,
prove.
this, it's not proof or evidence of
Yeah.
your activity, it's an edit. So it requires,
Clarity.
it would,
of, like, what
yeah,
I'm
an
trying
edit
to-
requires
Yes.
a fun, and in doing it 10 different ways, you're gonna feel 10 different ways about it. It's the one that feels the best. And it doesn't say best work, does it? Does it say that? Your best?
Well, I think
Best?
it has to do like what you think is your strongest work or your most
Yeah.
indicative work of the direction you want to go in right
Yeah.
now. And also, I believe it's clearly stated several ways on our website and in the actual application, but when you put in the information for your pieces, you put in a date, and then the system automatically orders them in that date.
Oh,
So you should
Good to know.
be aware of that. And when you get to the end of the application, you can see like a view of the work. So you should always look at how we'll look at it.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
A little too tall for this. So my question is, coming all the way from California as a graphic design student, I'm really curious to know what the faculty considers coming in and also going forward as a successful student. What do you guys consider as someone who knows how to go all the way through?
Oh gosh, there's so many ways to answer that question. Basically, we're interested in your ability, if you put in at least one image that, as I said earlier, that you made because you wanted to make it, we get an understanding of which direction you might be wanting to go in once you're here. And we understand that much of your experience has been work done with or for other people. We're trying to find the you in it. Help us find the you in everything that you show, because we're looking for an individual person. You know, we're going to pick. That's how we pick you. So it's really important to be behind some aspect of each work and make it clear what that is.
I would say curiosity, openness, and generosity are the qualities that I've often seen make up the best experiences. Qualities that you can bring to this situation.
Great, thank you.
So we look forward to seeing your work, basically.
Look forward to showing it.
I'm going to ask a web question real quick. Someone is asking, Dylan is asking, wondering in general, availability of faculty critics in general, are they on campus once a semester, every few years, or is there a general trend?
Why don't I answer that, since we probably have the most complex relationship. Some of us live here, so we're more easily here, but many of the people who come are coming up because they have a professional life of their own, and they come, they need to teach a class just one semester and not another semester. Or we have people who come from abroad who come and are here for 2 whole weeks, and they see you individually, you know, over time. I mean, I can attach names to that if that's useful to you. Like Karl Martens comes from Holland, and he comes in the fall, and he sees students one-on-one for 2 weeks. And Linda van Dersen does the same. Whereas Masamichi Urugawa and Sigi Moiselinger come 5 times, and they actually are, they do installations. They are product designers. And so if you had come yesterday, you would have seen swings hanging here, because one of their prompts was, can you do something in a space that changes the use of that space? And those swings have really changed the space. So it's just really very much different for each one of us, because we have people who come just 1 day or 2 days and see you one-on-one, you know, 6 people. We have people who teach classes. We have people who do workshops that are required, like the one I mentioned earlier about going to the collections and picking collections that are interesting to you and seeing that work. So most of the things that you want to have happen, if they're not happening, they can happen.
Thanks, Sheila. That question, I wanted to ask that because the person is not going to get to go to the breakouts later, and because they're doing the virtual streaming, but this is really different for every program. So our faculty are here in different capacities at different lengths of time. So we are working to provide a little bit better of a more clear snapshot of that on our program pages, which will hopefully be launched by the beginning of next semester. So. Okay.
This question is about the letters of reference. Someone mentioned earlier that they should come from someone who's currently working in the field that you're applying to, and I was just wondering how strict that was. So for example, I would be applying to painting and printmaking. Should this person be a painter, or it's just in the arts?
In the arts is fine, yeah, as long as it's like not your grandmother.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
That has happened. I'm not kidding.
It sure was a very
Everything's happened.
The best was when I worked in another grad program years ago, and a student had a dog. Their dog wrote them a letter, and there was a picture of the dog, and it was like, Lee walks me, and he's the best, and he touches me all the time.
They had the paw print on it, remember that?
Yes. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Animation. They were animation. They got it.
All right. The question I have is, what qualities in an interviewee, like in the interview process after the admission, would you say helps like make the decision that, yes, I want them to come here and make a change?
A lot, but what Anoka said, what was that? Clarity, honesty?
Or curiosity,
Generosity.
generosity, and openness.
Yeah, because I mean, I think those all come in because it is about you. It is about your work.
Mm-hmm.
It is about how you wrote about your work and how you're going to speak about it, and it's about how you'll be how we think you'll be as a community member. Like, because this isn't like, okay, you get in here and then you get in a pod and you don't, we feed you every 2 weeks or something. Like, it's a community and we all have to work together. It's not like you work for us, or we work together on this project of education. And so that's an important thing. So I don't know how to advise that, like how to be you, in your best way possible.
Well, let's just say it'll be different from any other job interview you'll ever, meaning that it is it's what we like to believe. We're looking for you in the work, and these interviews are about you. I think the only advice I would give anybody is to realize that there is no standard, there is no gold standard, there is no right stuff. There's you and how specific your concerns are, what you're doing and what you want.
Okay.
Hi, my question is about documentation. So I'm applying for painting mostly, and the work I do is also like between painting and installation. So there are a lot of details as well as processes going before making the painting. So the images that's the list that we allow for the painting upload is only 16, and then 2 detail shots. So I was wondering what your advice on getting the most out of those 2 detail shots. That's only like I'm gonna be able to present my work in detail as well as the process. Yeah.
I think that is just a guideline. I don't know if you have to adhere to that so strictly. Okay. So if the process and if the details are very important to us understanding the story of your practice, then you could include more details. So it really is, like Sheila said, it's like the portfolio is a statement about what you care about, what you're interested in, how to present your work, how to kind of tell the story of you as an artist through the visuals. So I think you just have to, it's like people have said, it's so specific to each applicant. So I think you really have to think about where the work is and what the work needs in order to be understood. But kind of like Martin said about the sculpture applications is sometimes people will send too many details about the same work, and we're like, oh, this again, like we've seen it from this angle and that angle and this angle, like we get it, like on to the next one. So, you know, I think that rule of thumb of presenting both a range of what you do, but then getting into the depth of the things that you do.
Okay. I think you can have a little more faith that the people looking at it have a lot of experience in looking at work, even their own work, in reproduction. We can use our imagination. Yeah. You know, we kind of can intuit that there's some texture there. That, you know, like you should have a little faith in our ability to kind of use our imagination and understand the limitations of reproduction, things like that.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I figured out it was like I've seen 6,000 portfolios or something like that.
It's a lot.
It's scary.
And you're just going to go and do it again this year.
You learn a lot.
But you know, you should know that I'm not sure how we all do something vaguely different than each other, or somewhat different. But one of the things that really matters is because we're going to be looking at a lot of pictures at a time, that we have to get it quickly to some extent. We will go back, but that first decision about people comes from the work itself. And so it's really important to pick work that makes a picture of who you are in your work right now. Because we're going to look at a lot of them. And we want to remember, oh, that's the one who did that. So you have to make it easier for us to know what it is at the heart of what you do.
That's great advice. All right. We have only about just a couple last questions, and then we have to wrap it up and move on to financial aid, but go ahead.
Hi. My question regards performance art and social practice work. So I work in performance art and social practice, and one of my reasons for coming to the open house was figuring out what department would be a good fit for someone who works in those mediums. But my main question is, what do you recommend for people with social practice projects or performance projects that involve a lot of people, or where the work itself is about what's happening together, or what's the involvement and the documentation are photographic stills? Like, how do you present what do you think would make a successful portfolio for someone who works in those mediums and maybe wants to continue that?
Well, if you thought about narrative or storytelling, you're telling a story about who you are in your work. So you would make the choices that made that evident. You know, here's this person who's looking at this and doesn't know you. So it's like telling a story in 20 images. How do we get the idea of who you are in your work in 20 images? So if you think it narratively, they're going to see the first one, then the second one, then the third. Yeah, think of a story being told that's going to tell about you and your work. And I think it'll be much easier, because then you could figure out, do I show the whole group and then I show one person because that person is having that effect? You have to think of a story, which is what narrative means. How do you tell that story about yourself in 20 images?
I would also say, from the brief description of your practice, I would also add that in a lot of ways, people have an expansive version of their work. There's a lot of travel involved. There's a lot of people bring to this equation a process which doesn't necessarily fit so easily with working in a studio or something, but that should be interesting to you, because that doesn't just begin and end in school. There are many things that life will bring you. We'd like to commission you to do something in this little corner. I've never done something in a corner before, but I'm going to apply myself to that problem. A lot of what goes on here is addressing maybe the limitations geographically, you know, and reimagining your work to be able to flourish, being not necessarily having exactly what you do be possible, you know.
Makes sense?
Yes.
Thank you. I have a question for John, which is, if the work submitted to the photo program is too similar to that of the faculty, can it hurt the application? Even if your style of work is visually very similar.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to ruffle the feathers of your faculty. That's probably just one of them. No,
Great
I mean,
answer.
we can tell. We can tell.
Thank you. Okay, good. We'll just do these last few briefly, and then we'll move on to David. So go ahead.
Hello. Is it important to talk about interest in elective courses in your statement?
Not really.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, that's a quick answer.
I don't think it can hurt.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not needed, though.
Yeah.
It's just, it's all
That's
about
what's important.
what's the most important, and if it's completely integral to how you're thinking about the future of your practice, then by all means. But remember, you have those 500 words, so you want to prioritize what's the most integral to your thinking now.
Thank you.
500 words.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. In all departments, do you ever look at applicants' websites?
No, we don't have time.
You don't have time?
No, we sometimes do, but there's not enough time to do that. If you get, several hundred applicants, it's just too hard to do that.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Is that fair?
Is there something you don't want us to see on your website?
If it was beneficial or not.
No, part of the answer is also, if you want to put it in the application, put it in the application.
Yeah, but I don't.
Not the website.
Oh,
not the website. Meaning that, like, whatever it is, put it in the application.
The application is your
submission.
Is your submission, and to say like, oh, look at my website, that's not going to really happen.
Yeah, I was thinking like on a resume or something like that, you know.
Well, if we had time, we would look at all of them. Sometimes if we're in doubt, even after an interview, we might look at it. But in the first push, no, we haven't got time. We're looking at those 20 images and the material that's sent with it.
Okay.
That's it.
And does every department have access to all the facilities?
Double question.
Once accepted? Sorry.
Just kidding. Yes. Well,
For the most part, there are some areas that are a little more limited, but for the most part, yes.
Yeah.
and some need a specific training.
Like
You
a
need
demo
to
or
go,
something?
Yeah, you need to do an onboarding training.
But I don't know when you said CCAM, whether people understand. There's a whole facility that has motion capture and AI.
VR
there's all kinds of stuff out there for you to work in that everyone has access to.
Okay, great.
Thank you. All right, last question.
So that kind of leads into my question. Is there an ease of access to digital fabrication facilities within the Yale School of Architecture?
3D printing?
Through the School of Architecture?
3D printing.
I would, I mean, to be truthful, it's not always smooth
Okay.
With architecture.
with architecture.
Yeah, architecture is very protective of their equipment, understandably.
I mean, because their students need it, not because they dislike other students.
So I would say the better resources that are more open are the Center for Engineering, Innovation, and Design, which Taryn mentioned, and the Center for Collaborative Arts and Media.
Okay.
And then whatever resources are already in the art school, which, you know, maybe for digital fabrication is more limited currently, but there are some initiatives to get that moving forward more. But the CEID and the CCAM have more of the digital resources currently.
Okay.
And those are open to art school students.
Understood. Thank you.
Great. And later, when you do your program breakouts, you'll have the opportunity to see facilities in the program that you're interested in. So, okay, thank you so much for your questions, and thank you so much, Martin, Sheila, John, and Noka. Let's give a round of applause.
Taryn, can I ask, they'll tell, I'm going to be waiting by the front door when it's over, when the breakouts happen?
Yes, but that's not yet.
Okay, I just wanted to say.
Yeah, I'll totally tell everybody.
I'm wearing this hat so you can see me.
Great. Thank you, guys. You can stay or you can go or whatever.
Thank you, everyone. See you
But
later.
you guys hang out.
Can I say one little thing?
Yes, please.
Those of you who are going to end up staying here, we're not staying in this seat. We're getting rid of it. We're going to sit over there.
Sheila doesn't like sitting behind a table.
I don't like sitting.
It's a barrier between her and you. Thanks, Sheila. All right, so we're a little behind schedule, not too bad. I'm going to introduce my colleague, David Blackman, who's Director of Student Financial Services Resources, and he's going to talk about the financial aid process, which is very specific here at Yale. And then when he's done, I'm going to come back just for 1 second because I'm just going to go through a couple housekeeping items, and then we're going to disperse specifically into groups. So we probably have just another 15 minutes, and then we'll be breaking out. So let's welcome David. So just tab over. All right.
What's up, guys? How you guys doing? Yeah, I know. It was such a long session, but they got you guys warmed up for me. I'm the main event, obviously. Yeah, I'm here to talk about financial aid and all the fun stuff, obviously. Like Taryn said, my name is David Blackman. I'm the Director of Student Financial Resources. I'm just going to talk to you guys a little bit about the application process and then a little bit about financial aid here. I will give you guys a little Q&A at the end, so if you have questions, please try to hold them till then. All right, let's go. Yes, so applying for financial aid, this is what everybody wants to know. So all students need to complete the College Board profile. The CSS code is 3807. Student, parent, and parent federal tax returns or income statements if you're a foreign student. Those need to be submitted as well. Domestic students need to file a FAFSA. International students need to do an international certification of finances, and those are secondary applications. The main one that I use is the College Board profile, though, so you definitely need to complete that if you're interested in financial aid. Requirements and deadlines. So the College Board and CSS profile and the FAFSA are all available right now, so you can go online, complete both of those right now, and they'll be out of the way, they'll be done. Both of them ask for 2017 parent and student information, so you can submit that now. The International Certification of Finances for any international students will be available January 15th. Make sure to include 2017 student and parent information on all the applications. And then the deadline essentially is to submit everything before March 1st. Do not skip or omit parental income information without speaking to me first. I'm going to mention this multiple times, so bear with me. So parent information. Parent information is probably like the biggest thing that I get questions on, and it's required for all students. So I know most of you guys are grad students, most of you guys have bachelor's degrees, or are in the process of finishing up, and you know, other schools kind of see grad students as like independent. We do too, but we still look at parental information when we're making a financial aid award. That's for every student, regardless of, you know, age, marital status, dependency. I get people ask me all the time, oh, well, I live with my parents. I don't live with my parents. I pay for everything on my own. They live on the other side of the country. I don't talk to them. I only see them at Thanksgiving and Christmas, blah, 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 blah. Yes, we still need parental information. When we make an assessment, we make an assessment based on a household and based on available resources, even if they're not technically available to you immediately. And that's just because we, unfortunately, don't have a large budget where we can just, you know, cover the cost of every artist coming in to the school right off the bat, looking at just themselves. I'm sure I'm going to get some questions on that. Feel free to talk to me after. We do waive information for extreme circumstances. Obviously, if your parents are deceased or there's some sort of trauma or something that happened as a child, and you don't have any actual contact with them, we don't require information from them, but I urge you to talk to me before filling out the financial aid application, just so that I have a heads up and I'm not like waiting for that information to be inputted. Definitely don't just assume that you don't have to put it in. And you know, I get applications all the time and they're, you know, they're empty, they're blank, they have zero parent information, and then it's like, oh, well, I don't talk to my parents, or I haven't talked to them in a few weeks. Well, that's not a good enough reason for you to like skip the information. And unfortunately with the CSS profile, you can't go back and edit that. So then from that point on, it becomes a manual process of collecting documents. So I encourage you to talk to me when you get to that point if you have some serious concerns. For the most part, I really don't try to get involved and make people jump through a lot of hoops until you've been admitted, just because I don't want to make you submit documentation of some trauma that you've had with your parents earlier on in life, and then find out that you didn't get admitted and we had to dig up something that was, you know, traumatic to you. The review process. So I know Taryn mentioned this before. We do have a need-blind admissions process, which means essentially that, you know, when each department is going through applications, when they're looking at your admissions information, they don't know, you know, they don't know anything. They don't know your background. They don't know how much money you make, how much money your parents make. They generally don't know, you know, what kind of household you grew up in, or what your financial situation is at the moment. So they're making a decision based solely off of your art, and they don't do anything to sort of push me or pull me in terms of giving you a better award or a worse award because of your financial situation or because they like your art. We don't give merit awards, which might come as a surprise to some people, but we try to give all of our money to the neediest students, and so that's why we have a need-blind process. As long as you've completed all the financial information, I get out a financial aid award to everyone that's been admitted within the first 2 weeks. If you haven't submitted everything, I will send you a notification saying, hey, I'm missing information. If you don't submit anything, I assume you do not want financial aid. That is a big thing. We get a lot of students that get admitted, they don't apply, they don't do anything, and then they come to me in June and say, hey, where's my financial aid award? I don't know you want it unless you ask me. So I'm going to assume if you don't do anything that you don't want anything. So just keep that in mind. I do tell people, you know, you can wait until you're admitted before submitting the financial aid documents. That is definitely up to you. It just might cause a little bit of a delay in getting your award done. So if you're applying to other schools and you're balancing awards, that might cause a little bit of a delay. where you're comparing awards between different schools if ours isn't available right away. I just want to stress, scholarship awards are calculated and granted solely through the financial aid office. You know, Sheila, Martin, John, Greg, and Anoka, they don't have really any input on, you know, what gets awarded to who. It's all need-based. It's all based on a formula that we apply across the board to every student. So basically about our financial aid awards, we try to meet calculated need. So most students do end up with a pretty generous award. I think about more than 80% of our students do receive some sort of scholarship. But our awards are made up of both scholarship, loans, work study. We have parent and student contribution for some awards. So that is sort of an expectation. We have a minimum student contribution of $3,000 that every student has to meet. So the maximum first year award is a full tuition scholarship, which is a big question I get a lot. So we do cover full tuition for a first year student if their need allows for it. And then in the second year, you can get a tuition increase or a scholarship increase. And so that award could technically be more than tuition in your second year. But the average scholarship award can vary every year. And, you know, what we have available definitely helps determine, you know, how much everyone is going to get. Questions? Excuse me? It's strictly tuition, no room and board. So the question was the maximum first year tuition scholarship doesn't cover any room and board. And yes, that is correct. So, you know, in the first year, the maximum scholarship you can get would not cover any room and board or any expenses other than tuition. Any other questions? Yes. So the question is, do we offer like TA positions? And we do offer TA positions. We try for the most part to have all of our TA positions happen for second years. So all of our second year students, once they're more familiar with their program and have taken classes and are familiar with faculty members, they are the ones that sort of take on TA roles, and they're paid a bi-weekly salary. And essentially that money is like work study. So if you're working as a TA, you're going to get paid, and you can use that money however you want. That money does not get paid directly towards tuition or rent or anything like that. It comes to you in a paycheck, just like if you were working, you know, at a computer lab or something. Yes. Financial aid is applied the same way it is for domestic students. The only real difference between financial aid for domestic and international students is domestic students are eligible for federal loans and international students are not. But we do have the Yale Grad and Professional Loan, which is available to international students, and so that can cover up to the full cost of attendance. Yes? So you're going to apply for a scholarship. You're going to apply for the CSS profile. You're going to do the CSS profile, do the FAFSA if you're a domestic student. And so I'm going to get that information. I'm going to go through. I'm going to calculate your award, come up with a student, maybe possibly a parent contribution, and then I'm going to send you an award letter with your scholarship amount and then an expected loan amount. So we don't force you to take a loan, but we have a suggested amount, which essentially is saying, hey, you know, this is the total cost of attendance. Here's how much it's going to cost you to be here for 9 months. So your scholarship plus your loan plus your work study plus whatever we expect you to contribute is going to equal that cost of attendance. So you have the option at that point to say, hey, I don't want to take this loan, so I'm going to go out and I'm going to find an outside scholarship, or I'm going to pull from savings, or I'm going to work over the summer to cover that cost. You also have the option to say, hey, I'm just going to borrow the difference between my scholarship and the total cost of attendance, and just not worry about coming out of pocket on my own, and just cover it all with loans. So that's pretty much how it works. And so if you do choose to take a loan, you can work with me and figure it out, or you can go to like an alternative lender like Sally Mae or Discover, or whoever it is. Yes. So if you wanted to do like a federal loan, if you're a domestic student, or if you're an international student and you want to do a loan through the school, you would come to me and I would help set that up for you, and we would get all the paperwork squared away so that your loan is in place to cover whether it be tuition or if it's just living expenses. Yep.
How do students coming out of state or international students usually deal with housing?
So for everyone that didn't hear, how do students coming from international or out of state deal with housing? There's a variety of ways. Some students that are closer, like students in New York and in the tri-state area, or just in the Northeast in general, can come here over the summer and sort of look for apartments. A lot of it is done online. People will search Craigslist. We have a resource that we send out just listing apartments or people looking for roommates in the beginning of the year. I think certain departments have their own sort of like communications back and forth, and so once you're admitted as a student, you can sort of hook up with those students and try to figure out housing that way. Taryn might be able to answer some of those questions.
I would also add that Yale has the Yale University has a listing of off-campus housing for graduate students, and they actually vet landlords and companies like rental property companies. And I would really recommend going through there, or at least researching the rental companies, because a student who arrived here this year was very unhappy with their apartment, and it was some things happened on the very first night, and she had a really hard time getting out of that situation. And actually the Yale off-campus housing office helped advocate for her, and then stopped posting that landlord's postings as a result of what happened. So they do actually really vet that. We also have, there are apartments that our own students kind of pass down to other students, and we post those on our new student website through the summer as we get them from students.
Yes. So the current cost of tuition is it's $38,760, I believe, for the year. But it will go, I'm assuming it will go up like 2% next year. Yes. I couldn't tell you exactly what your financial aid award is until you fill out all that information, get accepted, and I review it. In the back. Okay, that's a very good question. For those of you on this side who couldn't hear, she asked what percentage of students are doing some sort of work or doing like a TA position or something on the side. And honestly, I track the work study, and right now we're right about 65%. So about 65% of students actually work on campus or have some sort of work study job, and that does not include TAs. So it's probably a lot higher than that. I would say probably closer to 80% once we factor in the TAs. So, there are definitely jobs everywhere. You can come to me and find them, or you can, talk to your department director, and they can, point you in the direction of wherever work might be. Do you have a question? Yes.
So you said there are a few full scholarship students last year. What were their test information?
I couldn't tell you, you know, what. So the problem is, like, people are like asking me, like, what. See, this is like the tricky thing. Like, people are always trying to like figure out what their financial aid award is going to be. I can't tell you what it would be, and I can tell you, you know, I could give you like an approximation for one student from last year, but that at the same time, there's somebody with a somewhat different situation that had the same award, you know, because, you know, it could be, you know, they have, you know, two parents and both parents are working, but they have two brothers and sisters and both sisters are in college, and, you know, so like it's a big question, and I couldn't give you like the parameters for, hey, if this is what it was, then you're going to get this award, and I don't know the budget for next year, so I couldn't tell you anyway. So the last I checked, debt for our average graduate was between $22,000 and $24,000. Yep. Yes. On the CSS application, it really depends. If both parents are like remarried or one parent's remarried, generally it asks for the family unit, so it asks for one parent. But if they're divorced, it does ask for the non-custodial parent. So that person has to log in separately and provide their information. Okay, so two more. I'm getting we have a lot of hands. All right, I'm gonna go here, and then I'll go back. Yes?
Yeah, so my question was regarding the work study. About how many hours per week on average is a student working, and are they getting paid like minimum wage type work study, or what's the rate?
So work study rate here is $14.25 an hour. It's between $14.25 and $14.75. There's like a 50-cent differential based on the job parameters. The average student works about 6 to 7 hours a week, but there's a big variation. But that's including people that don't work. So I have people that average like 15 hours a week, and the max you can work each week is 20. So you can work 20 hours a week, but no one does that. We don't have anyone that literally can work 20 hours a week. So I would say the average is under 10. Yep. So that's really more of like an admissions question. So like if you get admitted and I give you a financial aid award, and you're looking at other schools, I mean, that's really on you, whether you want to come here or not come here. We do get people that accept our admissions offer right away and then see the financial aid award and go, oh, I don't know about this. So it's really up to you. I suggest the smart play is to, if you get admitted, wait until you get your financial aid award and then, you know, weigh the options. Most people get the award and go, oh yeah, this is what I wanted. Okay, I'm coming. All right. We're gonna do overtime. I'll do 1 to 2 more questions. Okay. Absolutely. So the question is, does your parent physically have to fill it out, or do you have the option of filling it out for them? You do have the option of filling it out for them. If you have separated parents. It does do a separate login for the non-custodial parent. And so they usually have to put in their email address and then create their own login to fill out the application. So it's really up to you. I have students, most of the students that I know do everything. They just get their tax information from their parents and then they fill out the whole application. So that is the option, but I know some parents are very protective and want to do it on their own, so they can go in and do it on their own. And then, did you have a question still? I take into account, you know, parents that have children. Generally, it doesn't really affect your scholarship. It more affects your budget and like what your total cost of attendance is. So, you know, for you know, a normal student, you know, cost of attendance is like $59,832. For a parent, you know, I add like additional $4,000 because I assume you have to cover childcare and things like that. It doesn't really help you with scholarship, but if you need to borrow to cover, like, you know, a babysitter, or, you know, you're worried about, you know, daycare, things like that, it helps that way. All right, I think that is it for me, but I am in my office. I'm like sort of across the hall, like kitty corner to the hall. So feel free to come and track me down and ask some questions. I have a candy jar, so feel free. I'll turn it over to Taryn.
Thanks, David. All right. Okay, we're gonna get you guys out of these seats. Before we just break out, just wanted to do very briefly tell you a little bit about where you're all going. This program that you got when you came in, first of all, want to thank our two second-year students, Hyung Cho and Willis Kingery, who worked on the identity for the event and printed these on the risograph. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you guys so much. And they made the motion graphics that you saw. And you'll see posters all around the school, and they're all made by students. So you're about to see a lot of great work. But on the back of the program is a little bit of wayfinding. The sculpture group has the farthest to go because you're going to a building that's about 2 blocks away. So you can leave first, but just before we do that, one more thing, which is I want to just thank Sarah and Edgar, who made all this AV possible, and they're amazing, and thank you guys so much. You guys rock, and Anahita, don't know where she is, but okay. So we are going to have AM, who again works with Marta in teaching critical practice. He will be here at 5 o'clock in either that room or that room to talk with you if you have questions about critical practice at the end of your program breakout. And then at 5:30 is going to be the closing reception for our first year student show in the gallery. So the sculpture group can go out in the hall and follow Martin Curcels and his group of students to the Edgewood building. But the maps on your program kind of take you through, and you'll see these signs like you see on the screen with the big yellow arrows. Just use a combination of your program and that, and you will hopefully get to where you're going easily. Graphic designers are staying here in this space. And then the painting group is going to go out really either door, but you're gonna, when you come out of this space, you're gonna make a left and you're gonna go out that doors and go to the building right behind here. And then photography is going downstairs and down the hall and basically directly underneath where we are now. Okay? All right, thanks you guys.